Welcome. You're watching or listening to The Human Resource. My name is Pandy Pridemore. I'm thrilled you're here. And if you're not familiar with our show, you are watching or listening from the studios of ICRC-TV in Cincinnati. We are just thrilled to be here because we try to bring you as much information and education on topics that relate to compliance and regulatory aspects, federal and state labor law, employment law. How do you work with a workforce in today's world? And businesses are struggling with this in every possible way. And if you've been watching the show for a while, you know that I keep telling you, you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And you've got to understand that change is the only constant in the universe. But then I started thinking about that. And I thought, well, if they're constantly adjusting to change and they understand as managers, as leaders, as HR representatives in these companies, if you're constantly adjusting to change, have you forgotten the importance of consistency? And this worries me because I feel like I'm failing you as as a coach, a mentor, whatever you use for me. I feel like I'm failing you if I don't remind each of you the importance of consistency. And I think if we all look at ourselves from a personal perspective, consistency works really well when we talk about, getting up in the day and having a routine or having a rhythm. And many of us are spontaneous. We get that. But when we talk about our professional lives and what we do to get through the day, dealing with the people and the conflict and the unknown, because every time you walk in that building or you pick up, start your computer and go to work, you really don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 or 8 hours. But the one thing you can control is you. The one thing you can offer your teams and your management and your employees is you, a consistent voice, a consistent presence, something they can depend on, trust, and lean on when things get crazy. And I made a list of the things I want you to really think about in terms of how consistent are you? You see, your supervisors, your employees, everyone that's working even around you, if they see you maintaining a sense of consistency, they're more likely to do it themselves. So let's start right at the very beginning. And again, we're going to wrap everything around an employment law. We're going to talk about who's really watching you and who will hold you accountable for your inconsistencies. And the first one that probably comes to your mind as well is the EEOC. And why would this be important to them? Well, think about it. They're looking for inconsistencies in how we discipline. How are we holding individuals accountable? And I'm not talking about just your documentation. I'm talking about how are you treating or how you're reacting or how you're acting to your employees and how you're forming your decisions. Are you showing consistency? Are you treating everyone equally? Or if there is a difference, if they're not similarly situated, do we have at least a basis by which we're showing some sense of origin of our decision? Maybe it's consistency in the application of a policy. What about consequences? Are we exercising? And God knows everybody has heard me talk about the importance of consequences on this show. But are you consistently enabling people and creating a new norm? Or are you offering and extending and exercising consequences? And if you're exercising a consequence for one individual, is that you're using that in consideration before you do it with another? The EEOC wants to know that you're not harassing or that your team is not harassing, that you're not allowing inappropriate behaviors and you're consistent with how you address that. And your documentation will show that. Your cameras can show that. Your your emails, your voicemails, all of it can be subpoenaed. Remember, I've told you that a million times. That will back your actions up. The EEOC is watching. Consistency is important. But what about wage and hour? Department of Labor loves them as well. Consistency has to show up in not only how you're paying individuals. Are you paying them all in the same way, on the same pay periods, with the same rules? But are you also paying them equitably? Are you consistent in exercising? Well, if this person has 4 years experience and has this level of education, whether they're male or female, transgender, no matter what ethnicity, this is where we start them out. This is how we determine who gets an increase and who doesn't. This is how we determine who gets a promotion and who doesn't. You see, many times emotions will get involved. Individuals will take things personally, or someone, God knows, the word retaliation doesn't come up nearly enough, and yet it's everywhere, and it's unconscious in many times. Many cases, it's unconscious, but you have to get on that stuff. You've got to identify it and address it as quickly as possible. I was looking at an employer called me in and said, "Hey, would you look at these personnel files and give me an idea of how we're doing?" Well, in the personnel files were performance evaluations. So I started looking at, this is the warehouse, this is the production floor. Do we interchange the employees? Oh, yeah, we interchange them all the time. Okay. But this supervisor is evaluating attendance in this fashion. This supervisor's evaluating attendance in that fashion. Might be the same person working in both, but this individual's giving a higher score and that person's giving a lower score. That's not consistent. And you have to understand the employees talk, but this could also affect their ability to be promoted, whatever the score is, or however someone wrote a comment. You see, consistency across the board with similarly situated individuals is vital. And that affects not only the EUC, but also wage and hour, as I just mentioned. How about ERISA? ERISA is overseeing your 401k. It's overseeing your employee benefits. How consistent are you there? Are you following your open enrollment timing? Are you following the eligibility for these benefits? I had a client call me the other day and they said, "Well, will this individual be eligible for COBRA?" And I said, "Okay, well, what's the qualifying event?" Well, she reduced her hours. I said, "Well, you know what? I congratulate you because you're even acknowledging that when an individual moves from full time to part time, the eligibility may have changed." And that's the kind of stuff that even your carriers are looking at to say, are you consistently taking your terminated employees off the plan so that you're not paying for somebody who doesn't exist? Or your plan is absorbing the costs of medical bills from an individual who's not active on or shouldn't be active on your plan anymore? And then, of course, we've got OSHA. And I love OSHA because OSHA is so simple. And think about what we can do to get out of a consistent pattern in OSHA. How about training? How consistent are you in making sure that your trainer is trained, that your temps are adequately trained for what we're going to ask them to do while they're in your building? Your ongoing W-2 employees, absolutely, they need to make sure that you've got consistent patterns of training and that their knowledge doesn't sacrifice or slip in any way. We want to keep everybody safe. And that's easy when we've got a consistent calendar of training and the trainers are consistently trained on the newest and most appropriate methods for doing things. It's nice to have a consistent no injury report, isn't it? A consistent number of years with 0 reports on your 300 report. I know, laugh with me. And then the last one that I know there's so many more I could put on here, but It's the National Labor Relations Board. And they love to find inconsistencies in how you're treating your employees. They love it. And they help the employees know what to look for. But keep in mind, you've got to follow your policies. Whether you don't have to have a collective bargaining agreement. Your handbook becomes your agreement. It's not a contract, but it's still an understanding between you and your employees that this is how business is to be ran. This is how your behavior is to be conducted. This is your participation. This is the benefits we're going to provide to you. These are the things you can expect from us as we expect others from you. You have to keep track. Make sure that your supervisors and your management are speaking the language of the company, that they consistently represent you and your policies, your culture, your mission when they're speaking to their employees. In fact, it's a matter of just, are they interpreting when you hire a new supervisor or you promote a supervisor? Do they know how to interpret your policies and your processes in the language that the company is asking? Consistency. It's amazing. It's really it's no one intentionally becomes inconsistent. I don't believe that. I really don't. I think we just get really comfortable. Mediocrity kicks in, especially our more tenured employees who have been around forever, and things become really easy. But it's costly. And it was interesting. I read an article not too long ago that said consistency is actually a competency. Someone who can maintain consistency is much, much more ample to succeed in what they're trying to do than someone who is very inconsistent. Think about it. I certainly have. And I'm so glad you joined us. Shout out to the new listeners and members, and thank you so much for the comments. Keep them coming. That's what we're here for at the Human Resource.